You'll be old someday, and do you know what baloney is? Grow old with me, the best is yet to be. That's baloney. And life begins at 40. You know who said that? The guy that died at 39. Well, thank you for that very gracious introduction. I liked him the longer he went. He was doing real well. Well, I hope you had good fellowship at your table. We didn't do too well at our table. This little girl right here is in high school. I'm the only one at the table she could talk to. There was Marshall Leggett, who can speak 3 languages. And there was the president of Cincinnati, and Lee Mason. And, you know, we don't talk. They were discussing the two-source theory of Isaiah. And one or two of them mentioned you had no Greek and Hebrew. And I always remind what Cotton Jones said. I know a little Greek, a little Hebrew. One has a restaurant and the other one has a tailor shop. I want to say to the preacher here at Mason, this beautiful facility, and when you come on such a busy intersection as that and to see all this space for the Lord, I really admire you very much. Well, any jokes I would tell, you've already heard them, so I'm going to stick. So I'm sort of going to stick to some that I know about. Let me talk a little bit about grandchildren. A mother was in the kitchen. She said to her little boy, grandchild, you know, when your papa and I were married, he would bring me breakfast in bed. Well, he said, Nana, you go up and get in bed, and I'll bring a cup of coffee. So she poured the coffee for him, and then she ran upstairs, got in bed, and he very gingerly brought the coffee up and gave it to her, and she was drinking it. She said, grandson, there's miniature army men in here. What, boy, that food was good. I guess I've eaten twice. Some going down, some coming up. You know. Said, what are these creature army men are in here? What are they? Well, he said, Grandma, it's like it says on television, the best part of waking up is soldiers in your cup. On Mother's Day, we took 2 of our grandsons, 11 and 13 years of age, out to eat. And as I was ordering from the menu, my wife said, Harvey, what she always says, Wayne, I wouldn't order that. It's got so many calories. Our 13-year-old grandson said, Nana, you all are at the dying age, and I don't think calories mean that much. That's why I like this little poem. I've seen the lights of Paris. I've seen the lights of Rome. But the best lights I ever saw were the taillights, taking my grandchildren home. I don't know if you've heard the one about the fellow went to a big department store in Chicago. You could order anything. And he said, I want to order 2 rats, 150 mice, 300 cockroaches. Well, it said, we don't have them in stock. but we'll get them for you. And do you mind if we ask who you are? And said, I'm a minister, and I've just been fired. And the last thing the chairman of the board said to me with his finger in my face, we want you to leave that parsonage exactly as you found it. Lee, this is a great crowd. If I had this crowd, I'd still have a church. I have to tell you that I'm amazed by this crowd, and I'm amazed who's here. I've shaken hands with 4 fellas that I thought was dead. Well, you know, we're into politics. I made a recording yesterday and one last week for some people running for office. But I want to share with you that when the former Bush was running for president, they asked me to come on a horse farm over in Woodford County, just very beautiful, just really rich. These people had plenty of money, and they wanted me to pray before they ate, and Bush was there and so on. So I prayed that Bush would win. And a news reporter, a TV reporter from Channel 18, came up to me and said, "I didn't like your prayer." I said, "I wasn't talking to you." I'm sure all of you have read those things, what young people say to God, and this is the best one I've ever read. Marcia, 7 years old, said, addressing God, "When you die, you don't have to do homework in heaven unless your teacher is there, and that probably won't happen." Now, there's 2 people here tonight that are friends of mine or have been. Ben Merrill and Cotton Jones. So I want to tell you an incident in my life, and I'm preaching tonight on restoring grace. And I just want to prove to you a lack of grace in especially Ben Merrill's life. And you know this won't get back to him. I believe it was 1997 or 98 that the North American was in Kansas City. And they came up to me after I'd spoken to a group of seniors for breakfast, and, "How you feeling?" I said, "I'm not feeling good. My leg bothers me." Well, I pulled up my pant leg, and it was red from the knee to the ankle, called cellulitis. Cellulitis. I didn't know what it meant. I asked President Milligan there, and he told me what it meant. So anyway, Ben said, "That looks terrible. I'm going to take you to the hospital." So the 4 of them took me to a small Lutheran hospital, and really wasn't anybody in the emergency room, and they of course waited. And after I was back there a while, I had to lay there a long time because they were waiting for an X-ray technician to come from another hospital. So I didn't pray about this. I let Satan have his way. But I said, "Go out there and get those 2 men and bring them in." And when they came back, I said, "Fellas, you know, I don't know you. With my condition comes..." Now, I missed the best part of the story. Before we went in, Ben said, "You have any money?" I said, "I got $50 in credit cards and checks." Well, he said these hospitals from out of town really probably wouldn't like to have cash. So he gave me $200, and Cotton gave me $100. So then to keep up with the story, I came back there and I said, I don't know who you are. With this condition I have comes amnesia. And the nurse was telling me there's a religious group in town and perhaps you're ministers. But I just thank you for whatever you've done for me, but I'm sorry I can't remember. And Ben Merrill said this: "Smith, we're sorry about your condition, but you still owe us $300. My books are all gone, so I can tell you now that I'm not using this illustration. But I went to Owingsville, Kentucky, the county seat of Bath County, when they built a new wing to their church. Chuck Lees is the minister there. And the Church of God preacher came over after church and ate with us. And then, as it says, he got the book but forgot to pay for it. Please find enclosed a check for $19 for the autobiography written by Rod Huron. I purchased it Sunday in Owingsville First Christian Church, and in my rush to get it autographed and attend a funeral, I wrote the check and forgot to give it to the lady. Can you possibly imagine the difficulty to get inspiration to preach on Sunday evening when I had ripped off the Reverend Wayne B. Smith on Sunday afternoon? And then I thought this was pretty cute. Now, the Baptists would say that you sin more or less every day. The Methodist would call it human infirmity. The Christian church would call it a mistake. Church of God folks would call it a fault, while the liberals would pocket the money and call it social justice. Well, I don't know if you heard about that. Heart cardiologist went to a dance, saw his worst patient out on the floor. He went up to him and said, "What are you doing here? Your heart is so bad." What? Well, he said, "Doctor, I understood you to say that you should get a hot mama and be cheerful." "No," he said, "I said, you have a heart murmur, be careful." I want to talk to you tonight about grace. I called our host, Brother Lee. I said, "Is that all right? Everything else looks restored, and so I want to restore grace." He said, "Well, it's okay, but how many times have you used that sermon under a different title?" I try hard to like Lee, but you know, and when I believe it was Harvey, said, "How many public causes that I've taken," my heart really wasn't in all of them, but I was afraid Lee Mason found about it. You know, it would appear in print, and I didn't want that. I want to talk to you about grace. Those of us that are real conservative, and maybe we could use more grace. I don't know where concern stops and worry begins. And I don't know where grace stops and compromise begins. But I think perhaps we know that, but I know I can use more grace. Ephesians 2:8, "For by grace ye have been saved through faith, not of yourselves, it's a gift of God." Grace is a churchy word that we use, and I'm really not sure we know the meaning. Insurance policy, there's 30 days of grace. An awkward child lacks grace. Prayer, we approach the throne of grace. When we're patient, we're long-suffering in grace. When we rebel, we despise God's grace. And the Church of England addresses their highest clergyman as your grace. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but few have sinned any more than John Newton. He sold his baby shoes for liquor. He was addicted to sex and a slave to a prostitute, then saved by the grace of God. And he wrote the most popular hymn in America today, "Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." I heard a story about a woman that loved her cat so much, she'd go to work, come home, that's it. Wouldn't take a vacation, any time away from that cat. Her husband said, "Honey, this is affecting you mentally, psychologically, and you've got to get away from that. You've always wanted to go to England. Call me back once a day and I'll tell you about the cat. I promise to take care of the cat." So she went to England, called back the first day, "How's the cat?" And there was a long pause, and he said, "The cat's dead." I don't like cats. Finally she said, "I don't think I'll ever forgive you for what you just said." What do you mean? Well, you just said the cat's dead. It was insensitive, without feeling, no compassion, and no grace. Marshall, see, I'm working grace into this. Without grace. Well, honey, there was nothing I could do. I had to tell you. How would you want me to tell you the cat's dead? Well, he said you could say the cat's on the roof, and I'd call you back the next day and, sliding off the roof, but they have 9 lives. And then the next day, the cat hit pretty hard, but these vets have some really strong medicine. And then after a day or two, you could say the cat died, but just to simply say the cat's dead. So they went on talking, and near the end of the conversation, she said, by the way, Mother hadn't been feeling good. How's she doing? He said, she's on the roof. Abraham Lincoln was asked, how are you going to treat rebellious Southerners when the war is over? They're defeated, they want to return to the Union. He said, I'll treat them as though they'd never left. That's called grace. Jackie Robinson broke the color line in 1947. Branch Rickey said, can you take it? Make an error, they're going to curse you, throw things on the field. And one inning, he made 3 errors, and they did just that. Pee Wee Reese, the immortal shortstop from Louisville, Kentucky, asked the official to stop the game. And he went out and put his arm around Jackie Robinson and encouraged him. And later he said, that embrace saved my career. Now, that's grace. Now, I think of my mother. When I think about grace, my mother was a godly woman, and that's why I'm up here. But she was a godly dictator. I mean, so she was something. We were in the Methodist church for a number of years, and even as a child, I'd pull on her dress and say, Mama, you're singing too loud. I mean, at that age, I could tell who can't sing, So, but then we wound up at the Delhi Church here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and even though it's not very big, it's holy ground to me. But anyway, she moved back from Michigan, and just before she died, and went with me to church and on Sunday night. I was 37, she was 77. And I had my wife and 2 little girls in the back seat, mother in the front seat. I got out in front of an ice cream place to get some ice cream and got out. She said, Wayne, where are you going? I said, I'm going to get some ice cream. She said, since when do we buy on the Lord's Day? So that's the way I was raised. I'm a miracle child. Anyway, I said, well, Mother, we don't buy on the Lord's Day. And then I went and got ice cream and came back and when she was gone. Now I know that's hypocrisy, but God has grace, and Mother didn't. I mean, you know what I mean? It was either black or white, and there wasn't any gray. God believes in grace. Do you believe in grace? David committed adultery. The Lord said he's a man after my own heart. Moses killed a man and led the children of Israel out of wilderness. Peter denied the Lord, then gave the keynote address on the day of Pentecost. John Mark was unfaithful in his missionary journey and then came back and wrote a book in the Bible. You see, if he can use an adulterer and a murderer and somebody that cursed him and went AWOL, he can use you, he can use me. When I look back upon our lives to see where you've been, except for God's amazing grace, we all would have died in sin. If you died tonight in your church, they put the casket there, people came around, would say various things about you. Good work ethic, loved his family, loved the Lord. Would they say you had grace, which means you're considerate of other people? I've never seen God, but I know how I feel. People like you who make him so real. A good school principal remembers when he was a student. A good judge remembers when he was a lawyer. A good editor remembers when he was a reporter. A good Christian remembers when I was lost, going to hell. When did we get so holy that we can't remember our sin? He is without sin, cast the first stone. Now, I've never apologized one time for what I believe about the Bible and the New Testament church, but I have apologized numerous times, not for my position, but for my disposition. You see, that's a fruit of the Spirit. And you can be 100% right and be wrong if your spirit's wrong. He that hath not the Spirit of Christ, none of his. Well, let me ask you 3 questions, and maybe you can tell whether or not you have grace. Can you disagree without being disagreeable? Does a person have to be a twin to be my brother? And can you walk hand in hand without seeing eye to eye? 2 Corinthians 5:18, God gave us the ministry of reconciliation. Reconciliation is a synonym for peacemaker. In my study, I found that Dr. Alva J. McLean made this statement: you may search the Word of God, but you'll never find peace first. It's always grace and peace. Let me use a personal illustration about Lee Mason and myself. Must have been about 15 years ago that we had a ministerial conversation. Pretty warm, really. And we disagreed about something, and so I sort of let it go. And so he called and he said, Wayne, I want to come to Lexington and let's heal this up. Of course, I knew he'd come and admit the error of his way. You know? Well, that story really didn't happen that way. But he came and we talked it out. And so I consider us very good friends today. Why? Why? Because you have to have grace first. And he opened the phone and came all the way to Lexington, which is over 100 miles. And then you have peace. In your home, somebody's got to give. In the church, can't we do something a little different? Does it always have to be this way? You got to have peace. Well, what is grace? Grace is unmerited favor. Grace, G-R-A-C-E, God's riches at Christ's expense. Ephesians 2:8, for by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it's a gift of God. Now, a gift means you didn't earn it, you didn't buy it, and you don't deserve it. For by sin, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and you're justified freely by his grace through faith. Now, through faith is where we get the repentance and confession and baptism, but the umbrella of all of it is grace. I love that story about a sweeper salesman. Went to way back in the mountains in Kentucky, and I mean, it was way back. It was back so far they'd go toward town to hunt. I probably won't use that one again. But he knocked on the door, and the woman opened the door about that far. She said, I want to sell you a sweeper. She said, I don't want a sweeper. But he was from Indiana, and he... Good to see you, brother. But he just barged in, had a little bag of dirt, dropped it on the floor, and said, lady, I've got the best sweeper in the world. If it doesn't sweep it up, I'll personally eat it. She went in the kitchen, brought back a big spoon, and said, you better start, buddy. We don't have electricity out here. Well, a sweeper without electricity is like a Christian who doesn't have some grace. Have some grace. I want to tell you about a friend of mine, a very good friend, who died December the 7th. His name's Lynn Aldridge. He was good to me, good to the church. And his dog died. At that point, we never had a dog or a cat. His dog died, and I just tell you, I just thought he was overdoing it. I thought maybe his mother had died. And then you know what? For our 50th anniversary, we've been now married 55 years in August, past August. Our girls gave us a dog. We'd never had a dog or a cat. And they gave us a Shih Tzu. I think they could have found a better brand for a preacher. You understand what I mean? So you know what? You know what? Now I understand. You know what? I've got a dog. And I can see how you love the dog, man. We love that dog. It's done so much for my wife. My wife has never talked to our two little girls like she talks to that dog. I mean, it's pathetic. And she doesn't speak in normal voice. It's in what do you call it? What do you call it? Some falsetto. Falsetto. I knew that's good. You're one of the wisest men I've ever met in Indiana. As a matter of fact, you're the only wise man I've ever met. And I heard her today, you sweet little thing, and all that kind of stuff. My wife is not a mushy woman, and it's turned her 180 degrees. 180 degrees she talked about. And I'll tell you what, if I'd have known back when we got married what I know now, I'd have had 2 dogs for our honeymoon. Well, we all know that wonderful hymn of wonderful grace of Jesus, greater than all my sin, how shall my tongue describe it, and where shall my praise begin, taking away my burden and setting my spirit free for the wonderful grace of Jesus reaches me. So fellas and ladies, life is a book in volumes 3, past, present, yet to be. The first we read and laid aside. Second, we're reading day by day. And third and last of the volumes 3 is locked from sight. And you keep the key. This matter of grace. Thank you.